corruption to oppression of the poor. Famous lyrical descriptions of Grand Canal landscapes and Shandong Mountains are considered masterpieces of modern Chinese prose. Laucan uses wit, medical skills, and moral authority to expose officials exploiting the people, often putting himself in danger. The work explores friendship, justice, and tension between Confucian social responsibility and Taoist detachment. The Travels of Laucan by Liu Yi, written in the final years of the Qing dynasty, is considered one of the finest Chinese novels of late imperial China. The protagonist Laucan is a wandering Taoist physician and social critic who travels through Shandong waterways, observing and intervening in social problems. He embodies traditional Chinese ideals, a man of conscience who cannot stay silent facing injustice. His journey chronicles profound crises of late Qing China, from official Zhuo's sister, the beautiful and tragic Empress Zhao, and witty exchanges among the scholarly elite. Particularly notable are accounts of craftsmanship, the legendary sword-making techniques and glass production that impressed visitors to the Han capital. Ji Hong's anecdotal method and eye for colorful detail influenced generations of Chinese writers. This collection remains an invaluable window into early Chinese elite culture and entertainment. From centuries of Chinese history, particularly notable are Liu Zhang's accounts of wise remonstrances that saved kingdoms and foolish advisors whose counsel led to disaster. The work served both as entertainment and moral instruction for generations of Chinese readers and officials. Garden of Stories represents the Han Dynasty at its most intellectually ambitious, synthesizing centuries of Chinese wisdom into an accessible, beautifully organized form. Family relations are vehicles for exploitation. The protagonist encounters one grotesque situation after another, from officials who fabricate loyalty to friends who betray without hesitation. Wu Jianren's unsparing gaze documents a world where everyone seems consumed by greed and self-interest, offering no hope of reform. The work stands as a landmark in Chinese realism and a devastating portrait of late Qing society. Principles of female martial artists whose skill rivals or exceeds their male counterparts, of moral dilemmas faced by heroes torn between personal loyalty and larger justice, and of encounters with bizarre martial techniques and supernatural abilities. The short form allowed writers to experiment with narrative technique, psychological depth, and thematic complexity. This anthology preserves some of the most accomplished examples of the martial arts short story tradition. Short tales of martial arts fiction collected from Qing Dynasty popular literature represents the rich tradition of brief martial arts narratives that flourished alongside the longer Gongan novels. These concise tales of chivalry and martial prowess feature wandering swordsmen who use their extraordinary abilities to protect the weak, defend the righteous, and punish the wicked. Stories in this collection include accounts of swordmasters whose martial discipline reflects philosophical. Garden of Stories by Liu Shang of the Western Han Dynasty is a rich anthology of historical anecdotes, philosophical reflections, and wisdom literature compiled for the edification of the Han court. Liu Shang organized his material into 20 thematic categories covering governance, moral philosophy, interpersonal relations, and the consequences of good and evil conduct. The work includes vivid character sketches, memorable dialogues between rulers and ministers, and instructive tales. Event in recent memory was when old Mr. Patterson's cow got loose and wandered into the hotel lobby. That was 12 years ago. Since then, the days had rolled into weeks and the weeks into months, and nothing had disturbed the peaceful rhythm of town life. So when Jim Harding woke up at 4 in the morning on the 15th of September, he thought at first that something was wrong with his clock. But his clock was right. The town was completely awake. He could hear voices outside, cars. After working in hospitals in both New York and Los Angeles, she was 50 years old, with sharp eyes that missed very little and a direct way of speaking that some people found uncomfortable but most people respected. On the morning of the second day, Dr. Park examined 6 patients who came to her office complaining of exhaustion, headaches, and anxiety. But when she ran her tests, she found nothing wrong with any of them. "Your blood pressure is perfect," she told Jim Harding, who had come in. Fu's wife emerges as one of the most vivid female characters in classical Chinese literature, a woman of taste and intelligence who finds joy in literati pursuits despite material limitations. Later chapters describe the couple's growing financial difficulties, separation from family, and ultimate tragedy. The work's intimate portrayal of married love and its elegiac tone have made it enduringly popular. Connection. A few had heard music, beautiful and haunting, that seemed to come from the earth itself. The exhaustion was still there, but it no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a door that had been opened, revealing something wonderful on the other side. That night, for the first time since the strange nights had begun, people gathered together not because they were afraid, but because they wanted to be together. They gathered in the coffee shop, in the church, in the park, and they, opposite bank of the stream, looking at him. Jim looked back. He should have been surprised or frightened, but he wasn't. It seemed like the most natural thing in the world, a man and a deer having a conversation without words. "I'm wasting my life," Jim said to the deer. "I spent 30 years working, and what do I have to show for it? A store, a house, some money in the bank. None of it means anything." The deer seemed to nod. "But it's not too late, is it?" Jim asked. "I'm only 53. The human body had a natural ability to heal itself, but that ability was usually suppressed by the constant noise of daily life. The stress, the worry, the endless demands of modern living, all of it created a kind of static that interfered with the body's healing mechanisms. The sleeplessness, paradoxically, was giving people something they had never had before: stillness. Stillness in which the body could finally do what it was designed to do. "It's not magic," she told Rosa one evening, as stories and their creations, their hopes and their visions. On the last night of the festival, everyone gathered in the park to watch the sun go down. And as the sun sank below the hills, something extraordinary happened. The stone in the hills began to glow. It was visible from everywhere in the valley, a soft blue light that pulls gently in the distance. People gasped and pointed and fell to their knees in awe. And then, one by one, they started to glow. It was not a literal glow, not. Tom had written, and the family reunions they had sparked. She learned about the changes in the town, the new businesses and new attitudes, the slow but steady transformation of a sleepy valley community into something new. And one evening, as she sat on the porch of the hotel watching the sun go down, she had a conversation with the owner. "I came here looking for something," she said. "I didn't know what it was exactly, but I felt like I would know it when I found it. And now that I've been here..." Machinations surrounding her exemplify the complex interplay of beauty, power, and revenge that characterized these rival states. The Wu Yu tradition includes famous accounts of sword-making technology, the great naval fleets of ancient China, and elaborate rituals that distinguished these southern kingdoms. The narratives of Guian's return from captivity and his eventual triumph over Yu became paradigmatic stories of perseverance and strategic patience in Chinese culture. Miscellaneous Records of the Western Capital by Ji Hong of the Eastern Jin Dynasty is one of the earliest and most influential collections of anecdotes and lore from China's early classical period. Ji Hong, a Taoist alchemist and scholar, assembled accounts of remarkable individuals, unusual events, and cultural practices from the Western Han capital Chang'an and the broader early imperial world. The work includes vivid portraits of famous courtiers, the poet Sima Zhongru and his lover. Millennium. Flowers in the Mirror by Li Ruzhen of the Qing Dynasty blends travel adventure, romantic narrative, and social satire. Tang Ao Tang, a scholar of exceptional talent, embarks on fantastical voyages to remote lands populated by extraordinary peoples. Each island embodies a different social vice or moral failing. In one kingdom, women rule while men are subordinate, allowing pointed critique of gender inequality. In another, sycophants hang by their tongues. The second half centers on In Search of the Supernatural by Gan Bao of the Jin Dynasty is the most important and influential collection of Chinese supernatural tales from the early classical period. Gan Bao, an official and scholar, gathered and edited hundreds of stories about ghosts, spirits, fox demons, supernatural retribution, and miraculous events from earlier literature and oral tradition. The collection includes famous tales: The Man Who Refuses to Kill a Tiger's Cub and is Rewarded, The Ghost Who Keeps a Account of Feudal States of the Eastern Zhou by Feng Menglong, compiled in the Ming Dynasty, is an historical novel dramatizing the turbulent 5 centuries of the Eastern Zhou period. Feng Menglong, one of China's greatest storytellers, wove together historical records and folk tradition to create a sweeping narrative of war, diplomacy, political intrigue, and heroic exploits. The novel covers the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period, dramatizing legendary figures. Promise, the judge in the underworld who discovers his own injustice, the devoted woman whose love transcends death. Gan Bao's approach combines careful editing with genuine belief, presenting supernatural events as matters of historical record rather than mere folklore. The work established patterns that dominated Chinese supernatural fiction for centuries, influencing later collections and becoming a source for drama and narrative art. The Case of Magistrate Pen from the Qing Dynasty, a major Gongan investigative fiction following the formula established by Magistrate Shi novels. The protagonist Peng Zhiqing, a newly appointed magistrate of remarkable ability and integrity, inherits a world of corrupt officials and criminal networks. Peng proves himself a worthy administrator through a series of brilliant investigations that expose murderers, fraudsters, and local tyrants. The novel combines detective puzzle solving, eccentricities, clever rejoinders, and memorable anecdotes about famous figures. Feng Menglong's editorial skill lies in selecting material that entertains while offering sharp observation on human nature. The work became a model for comic and satirical writing in later Chinese literature, influencing drama, fiction, and popular humor. Its encyclopedic scope makes it an invaluable record of wit and wisdom from across Chinese history. Duke Huan of Qi and his minister Guanzhong, the strategist Sun Bin, the eloquent diplomat Su Qin, and the 100 schools of philosophy competing for royal patronage. The work dramatizes famous episodes, the scissor-throwing assassin, the of Kings, alliance formations and betrayals. Feng Menglong's narrative skill transforms dry historical records into compelling drama, making the work a beloved introduction to Chinese historical culture. Continuations of the Wonderful by Wu Jun of the Liang dynasty is one of the most sophisticated collections of supernatural fiction from China's early medieval period. Wu Jun, a scholar and Buddhist convert, compiled tales emphasizing Buddhist karmic principles and supernatural justice while maintaining high literary standards. The collection includes famous stories that became templates for later Chinese supernatural fiction: the ghost who cannot bear to see its own funeral portrait, the ghostly lover who turns out to be a past incarnation, and elaborate tales of supernatural retribution. Wu Jun's Buddhist perspective adds philosophical depth while his narrative skill transforms moral tales into art. The work demonstrates how Buddhist ideas transform Chinese supernatural fiction, introducing concepts of karma, reincarnation, and cosmic justice that would dominate the genre for centuries. With martial arts adventurers, Peng's investigations frequently involve encounters with martial villains who must be defeated before justice can prevail. Peng's combination of literary cultivation, legal brilliance, and martial prowess made him an ideal Qing dynasty official hero. The Peng cases became a template for generations of investigative fiction and established the Gongan genre as one of the most durable in Chinese popular literature. The Scholars by Wu Jingzi, Qing Dynasty, is China's first full-length satirical novel. It uses interconnected vignettes to expose corruption and hypocrisy of the scholar official class trapped in the imperial examination system. The narrative follows various scholars who sacrifice their talents pursuing official careers, reduced to flattering parasites or tragic figures. Notable characters include Fan Jin, whose brilliant mind is crushed by examination orthodoxy, and Fan Lizzi, and Bureaucrats of Today by Li Baoya, written in late Qing Dynasty final years, stands as the great masterpiece of Chinese political satire. The 60-chapter novel depicts different instances of bureaucratic corruption, incompetence, and hypocrisy, forming a comprehensive indictment of the official class. Li Baoya employs a kaleidoscopic structure, following one official or group before shifting to another, surveying the entire spectrum of bureaucratic vice from capital to provinces. The work describes officials embezzling disaster relief funds, selling titles and positions, torturing innocent villagers, and shamelessly competing for promotion regardless of human cost. Li Baoya was himself a low-ranking official who witnessed firsthand the brutal machinery of late Qing governance. His personal experience lends authenticity to this devastating portrait of systemic corruption at every government level. Observations on human folly. Unlike earlier supernatural collections, Ji Zhaolan's tales carry sophisticated irony and moral weight. Many entries end with pointed lessons about hypocrisy, greed, and the gap between Confucian ideals and reality. The prose is elegant yet accessible, blending classical Chinese with colloquial elements. This collection profoundly influenced later Chinese literature and remains widely read today. Notes from the Yue Hermitage by Ji Zhaolan, compiled over decades in the late Qing period, is one of China's most celebrated collections of supernatural tales and social commentary. Ji Zhaolan, a distinguished scholar official and encyclopedia compiler, gathered anecdotes, ghost stories, and observations spanning thousands of entries. The work covers an extraordinary range: fox spirits, ghostly apparitions, karmic retribution, corrupt officials, superstitious peasants, and witty porches. Some were just standing in the street, looking around as if they were waiting for something. Good heavens, Jim said to himself. He got dressed and went outside. His neighbor, Martha Chen, was standing in her front yard. Martha was 70 years old and had lived in Harmony Falls her entire life. If anyone knew what was going on, it would be Martha. Martha, Jim called out. Do you know what's happening? Martha turned to look at him. She looked confused but not frightened. I have no Sleep deprivation. When the brain doesn't get enough sleep, it can start to hallucinate. But something about the hallucinations in Harmony Falls seemed different. They didn't feel frightening or random. They felt meaningful, like messages from somewhere. "I've been thinking," said Rosa, the owner of the coffee shop, as she poured Dr. Park a cup of coffee on the third evening. "Maybe this isn't something wrong with us. Maybe it's something happening to us. Like maybe we're being given something." Three Heroes and Five Gallants by Shi Yukin and others, compiled in the Qing Dynasty from earlier storytelling traditions, is one of the greatest martial arts novels in Chinese literature. The work introduces the legendary characters of the Beilong Dao and associated heroes who use martial prowess to defend the innocent and punish the corrupt. The narrative centers on the trials and adventures of the upright magistrate Pang Jing and his supernatural allies who aid him in administering. Had built their fires in the same spot where the town now stood. They saw the town 200 years ago, when the first European settlers had arrived and had felt, as they stood in this very clearing, the same pull that the people of Harmony Falls were feeling now. They saw the town 100 years from now, thriving and peaceful, a place where people lived in harmony with each other and with the land. The image faded. The stone's glow dimmed, and when Tom looked around, he saw that for a week, then one morning, she showed up in Harmony Falls. She stood on Tom's doorstep, looking nervous and uncertain. "I got your letter," she said. "I read it about 50 times, and I realized something." "What?" Tom asked. "I've been angry at you for 20 years, she said, "and the anger was the only thing keeping me going. Without it, I didn't know who I was. But now, after reading what you wrote, I think maybe I can finally let it go. Maybe we can both let it go." Tom invited her in. Cholesterol, which had been borderline, was now excellent. Her energy levels, which had been flagging for months, were now higher than they had been in decades. What was happening to these people? Were the sleepless nights actually healing them? Dr. Park spent the next several days observing and documenting. She interviewed hundreds of people and recorded their experiences. She took blood samples and ran every test she could think of. And slowly, she began to form a theory. She believed that memory of those first strange nights when the town had stopped sleeping and started waking up. A memory that each person carried with them, a light that would never go out. Chapter 14, The Traveler. One day, about a year after the Festival of Waking Up, a traveler arrived in Harmony Falls. She was a woman of about 60, with gray hair and bright eyes, and she carried a backpack and a walking stick. She had been traveling the world for decades, she said, looking for places where something. Traveler stood up. The sun had set, and the first stars were appearing in the sky. She looked north, toward the hills where the stone was glowing. "I should get back on the road soon," she said. "There's so much more to see, so many more places that need to wake up. Will you come back?" The hotel owner asked. The traveler smiled. "In a way," she said, "I'll never leave. This place is in me now, and wherever I go, I'll carry it with me." Chapter 16, The Reunion. 2 years after the strange nights. Dreams of the Taoan by Zhang Dai, written by a late Ming loyalist looking back on his vanished youth, is a masterpiece of memoir and nostalgia. Zhang Dai witnessed the collapse of the Ming dynasty and spent his later years in poverty, composing memories of the cultural world that perished with the old order. His memoir captures the Jiangnan world of Suzhou and Hangzhou in vivid, intimate portraits, lantern-lit boat parties on West Lake, opera performances in private gardens, book. The river, the literary gatherings in private gardens, the famous courtesans and their patrons, the extraordinary range of foods and crafts that made the city a byword for refinement. Li Du writes with warmth and precision, capturing both the spectacular and the mundane with equal attention. As an urban portrait, the work has few rivals in Qing literature. Investiture of the Gods, attributed to Zhu Zhonglin of the Ming Dynasty, is one of China's most beloved mythological novels. Set during the twilight of the Shang Dynasty and rise of Zhou, it weaves historical events with Buddhist and Taoist cosmology into an epic of cosmic conflict. King Zhou of Shang descends into tyranny and debauchery, alienating the heavens through his wickedness. The Jade Emperor dispatches deities and immortal heroes to assist the Zhou cause. The novel introduces extraordinary Taoist cultivators and demon slayers who take sides in this mortal mythological struggle. Yang Jian, the 8 Immortals, and Najia engage in magical battles featuring swords, celestial armies, and supernatural transformations. King Wu of Zhou, assisted by Zhang Zia, wages war against decadent Shang. The climactic struggle represents the cosmic battle between order and chaos. This work profoundly shaped Chinese popular culture and opera. Records of Yangzhou Painted Boats by Li Du, written in the late 18th century, is the most detailed surviving portrait of Yangzhou's flourishing cultural and commercial life during the Qing dynasty. Li Du systematically documents the famous Qinhuai entertainment boats, the city's legendary restaurants, its bustling markets, and the colorful characters who animated urban life. The work provides invaluable information about Yangzhou's vanished pleasures, the floating restaurants on interests involved. The cases he solves range from murders and robberies to complex fraud schemes and family intrigues. The Gongan tradition, with its formula of crime, investigation, and resolution, influenced Chinese detective fiction profoundly and was carried to Japan and Korea, where it generated local variations. Shi Tianyuan became a beloved folk hero, his name synonymous with incorruptible justice. Remarkable women, reincarnated flowers, and talented female scholars who form their own academy. They demonstrate exceptional abilities in poetry, calligraphy, military strategy, and statecraft, often surpassing male characters. Li Ruzhen weaves adventure fiction with utopian fantasy and feminist social critique to create one of the most original novels in the Chinese tradition. Assassination attempts, desperate last stands, and the tragic figures who resisted the Qin conquest. The regional culture of Yan and Zhao was celebrated for its martial spirit and distinctive traditions. This historical literature preserves accounts of a heroic age in Chinese history, when the Chinese world faced existential threat from the rising Qin Empire, and demonstrates the values of loyalty, courage, and sacrifice that characterized the period's greatest figures. Selected Tales of Tang and Song represents the finest achievements of classical Chinese short fiction from the Tang and Song dynasties. These sophisticated tales, composed by the greatest literary minds of medieval China, transformed popular storytelling into high art. Works include The Tale of Yin Yang by Yuan Zhen, a sophisticated exploration of love and social constraint. The Tale of Li Hua, which influenced the development of vernacular fiction. Naja Rain's Hell with its vivid, supernatural machinery. And The Tale of the Curio Trader with its evocative portrait of urban life. Tang and Song tales explored themes of love transcending social boundaries, supernatural intervention in human affairs, the rewards of virtue and punishment of vice, and the anxieties of urban life. The genre reached extraordinary heights of narrative sophistication and psychological insight, laying foundations for later vernacular masterpieces. Apparitions, dream journeys to supernatural realms, and tales of magical transformation appear alongside observations on human vanity and social pretension. The collection reveals Yuan Mei's playful curiosity and skepticism toward official morality and superstition alike. Its elegant prose and wit made it a model for later strange tale literature throughout East Asia. Incorrigibly pedantic teacher. The opening poem describes worldly success as fickle before introducing readers to the examination system and its victims. Through vivid character portraits, the novel reveals charlatans, embezzlers, hypocrites, and genuine talents all struggling within a corrupt framework that rewards nothing but examination technique. This masterpiece offers an invaluable window into Qing dynasty society and the examination system that governed educated Chinese lives for over a novel. Maintains the core appeal of Qing martial arts fiction, spectacular martial arts sequences, encounters with bizarre villains with unusual weapons and techniques, and the moral clarity of heroes whose sword technique serves righteous ends. Small Five Gallants represents the continued evolution of a narrative tradition that would produce some of the most beloved fiction in Chinese popular culture. Idea, she said. I just woke up. Could not sleep. Been like this for about an hour. I thought I was the only one. You too? Jim said, I thought I was losing my mind. You and everyone else apparently, said a voice behind them. They turned to see Tom Reeves walking toward them. Tom was the town's only police officer. He was a big man, about 6 feet tall, with a kind face and a calm manner that made people feel safe. He had been the police chief for 15 years, and before that he had worked. He found a man who had started to hear things, though when he checked, there was nothing to hear. He found teenagers playing basketball in the park at midnight, not because they wanted to, but because they couldn't sleep and didn't know what else to do. It's like we're all prisoners, Tom said to himself as he drove home. Prisoners of our own bodies. And there's nothing I can do about it. Chapter 3, The Third Night. By the third night, the exhaustion had begun to transform into something else. Justice beyond the reach of corrupt officials. Particularly famous is the character of the winged tiger Yuqi Chun, whose martial prowess and personal honor embody the ideal of the wandering swordsman. The work establishes patterns that dominated Chinese adventure fiction: the association of martial skill with moral virtue, the preference for extra-legal justice over corrupt officialdom, and the glamorous world of heroes living outside conventional society while serving its deepest needs. Companions were weeping. What was that? David Kim asked. That was the memory, the voice said. The memory of this place. It has been waiting here, all these years, for someone to be ready to see it. And now you are ready. All of you. That is why you cannot sleep. You are waking up. Chapter 6. The Gift. When Tom and the others returned to town, they found that everyone had felt something. Some had seen visions, like the men from the hills. Others had felt a profound sense of peace and sat in his kitchen and talked for hours, not about the past, but about the present, about who they were now and what they wanted to be. And when Helen left that evening, she was still angry, but it was a softer anger now, an anger that left room for something else. The people of Harmony Falls were all having similar experiences. Long-forgotten friendships were rekindled. Old arguments were finally resolved. Families that had been divided for years came back together. The sleeplessness had. They sat in the now empty coffee shop. It's just that we've created a world that doesn't allow our bodies to do what they naturally want to do. And when that world stopped for a moment, everything else just fell into place. Do you think we can keep it? Rosa asked. The stillness? Dr. Park didn't know. She hoped so, but she suspected that eventually the world would come rushing back in. The question was whether people would be able to hold on to what they had learned during this strange time, or, the town changed in other ways too. People were kinder to each other. They took time to listen, really listen, when someone was speaking. They were more patient with their children and their elders. They wasted less and shared more. It wasn't a utopia. There were still arguments and disagreements, conflicts and frustrations. But something had shifted, a fundamental change in the way people related to each other and to the world around them, and through it all, the memory remained. Tom Reeves received a letter. It was from his brother, the one in California, the one he hadn't seen in 15 years. In the letter, his brother said that he was retiring from his job and moving to Harmony Falls. He wanted to be closer to family. He wanted to be closer to whatever it was that had transformed this town. Tom showed the letter to his wife, Maria, who had moved to Harmony Falls 5 years ago and had married Tom 2 years after that. Your brother is coming to live here. The town that stopped sleeping. Chapter 1. The First Strange Night. The town of Harmony Falls had been a quiet place for over 100 years. It sat in a valley surrounded by green hills, about 3 hours north of the city. The main street had a bakery, a grocery store, a small hotel, 2 bars, a police station, and a coffee shop called Rose's, where most of the town's business was done. And no one could remember the last time anything interesting had happened in Harmony Falls. The biggest. Considered this. Mass hysteria was a real phenomenon, where people in a group began to experience similar symptoms without a physical cause. But it usually happened in response to some stressful event, like a war or a disaster. Nothing like that had happened in Harmony Falls. I don't think so, she said finally. There's no reason for mass hysteria here. Nothing traumatic has happened. And mass hysteria doesn't usually last this long. What does last this long then? Dr. Park had no answer for. Looked out his window at the quiet town, and for the first time in years, he felt at peace. Chapter 4. The First Wonder. On the morning of the 4th day, Sarah Kim made a discovery. Sarah was 16 years old and a junior at Harmony Falls High School. She had been awake for 3 days, and she was exhausted like everyone else. But unlike most people, she had decided to use her wakefulness to work on a science project she had been putting off for months. Sarah's project was about the effects of the clearing. They found something that none of them had ever seen before. It was a stone. Not a boulder or a rock, but a single stone, perfectly round, about the size of a basketball. It sat in a small depression in the ground, as if it had been placed there deliberately, and it glowed with a soft blue light. Tom approached the stone slowly. He could feel a warmth coming from it, even though he was still several feet away. When he got close enough to touch it, he reached out them because writing them had helped him to understand himself in a way he never had before. His brother called 3 days later, crying on the phone. They talked for 5 hours, and at the end of the conversation, they made plans to see each other for the first time in 15 years. His old roommate, now living in Germany, wrote back a long letter of his own, full of memories and apologies and hope for the future. They started exchanging emails every day. His ex-wife, Helen, didn't respond. Could still do something different. I could still be someone different. The deer walked away, back into the forest, and Jim understood that the answer was yes. It was not too late. It was never too late. Chapter 9. The student. While Jim Harding was fishing, his daughter Lily was having her own revelation. Lily was 22 years old and had just graduated from college with a degree in business. She had been planning to come back to Harmony Falls and take over the family store, just like whether they would slip back into their old habits and forget everything. Chapter 11, The Return. On the 20th day after the strange nights began, Jim Harding came home. He had been gone for almost 3 weeks. In that time, he had fished, hiked, sat by streams, watched sunsets, and thought about his life. He had never felt more alive or more himself. When he pulled into Harmony Falls, he noticed something different about the town. It looked the same on the surface. The same buildings,